So picture walking into a room where there's this a slow, undetected carbon monoxide leak.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a terrifying thought.
Right. Because you don't see anything broken, you don't hear an alarm going off or anything. The furniture looks, exactly the same as it did yesterday.
Right. You're looking for a physical danger, but the destruction is actually happening on a molecular level.
Exactly. But the longer you sit in that room, the heavier your limbs feel. Your thinking gets foggy. I mean, the very air you're breathing is slowly shutting down your vital systems.
And you don't even realize you're being poisoned until you literally can't stand up.
Yes. And, well, when you step into the realm of human relationships, the most devastating weapons operate exactly like that invisible gas.
That's such a good way to put it. We're just constantly wielding these weapons.
The OR, we're suffocating the people we love the most. And we usually call it something completely harmless, like, just venting.
For letting off steam.
Yeah.
Right? So, welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are unpacking this intensely provocative text from September 2019. It's by an author named Xu Feng, translated by Kinyu, and edited by Kanye.
And we should mention it carries a title that just pulls absolutely zero punches.
Oh, it really does. The title is Grumbling and Complaining Are Weapons That Kill Kinship, Affection, and Love.
Yeah, it's intense. And right off the bat, we need to set some ground rules for you listening. The author uses some very uncompromising spiritual language throughout this essay.
Yeah, you're going to hear references to gods, saints, and like the greatest creator.
Right. And our mission today isn't to endorse those specific theological claims. We are remaining totally neutral on that front. But if you strip away the theology for a moment, what you're really looking at is a brutal, deeply analytical breakdown of human psychology.
It really is. It's like an anatomical study of how dissatisfaction mutates into this lethal interpersonal weapon. So, okay, let's unpack this. Xu Feng doesn't just throw the words grumbling and complaining around interchangeably. The text draws a very sharp line between them.
It treats them as two distinct stages of a disease, really.
Exactly. So grumbling is defined as the internal state. It's like the incubation period. You put in the effort, you didn't get the result you wanted, and now you're just quietly brewing with resentment.
You start feeling like the universe owes you.
Yes, you're internally blaming your circumstances, but, and this is key, it is all contained inside your own head.
But the danger of that internal state is how it distorts your perception over time. Grumbling creates this massive feedback loop of victimhood.
Right.
And eventually, that internal pressure reaches a boiling point. I mean, it has to escape. And that's when it crosses the line into the second stage, which is complaining.
And the text defines complaining as the external manifestation.
Exactly. It is the moment you refuse to accept fault for a bad outcome, and you actively force other people to bear the consequences of your dissatisfaction.
Okay, so it sounds like grumbling is the internal infection, like you've got the bug, you're feverish, you're miserable.
Right.
But complaining is actively coughing that virus onto everyone else in the room.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy, yes.
Yeah.
You are taking your own internal sickness and basically ensuring the people closest to you catch it too.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
And the author explicitly frames this outward manifestation as making a person literally toxic.
Yeah, Sfing writes that this behavior causes a person to lose their demeanor, their morality, their beauty, and even their spiritual light.
Wow.
And it doesn't just happen through shouted accusations either. The text notes that this toxicity leaks out through passive language, pessimistic emotions, and get this, even physical postures and movements.
Oh, man, yeah. Like the heavy sigh when your partner asks you to help with the dishes.
Yes, or the slumped shoulders when you walk into the office.
The subtle eye roll. I mean, you don't even have to use words to cough the virus onto someone else. You're just altering the whole atmosphere of the room.
And because complaining operates like this contagious virus, it naturally attacks the people in closest proximity first. The text maps out a highly specific blast radius.
It starts at the very center of the home and moves outward in these like concentric circles.
Let's look at the casualties in that inner circle first. The text says if you aim this weapon at your parents, you lose their love.
Which is heavy.
Yeah.
And if you complain to your children, you lose their filial piety.
Right. And for anyone unfamiliar with that term, filial piety is essentially the natural respect, devotion, and care that children have for their parents.
With a spouse, the text bluntly states it just leads straight to divorce.
And with siblings, the relationships completely break down.
What's wild is that when you analyze the mechanism behind those family breakdowns, it actually makes perfect psychological sense.
It really does. I mean, think about the parent-child dynamic. A parent's role is to provide stability and guidance,
Right,
right?
they're the anchor.
Exactly. So when a parent constantly complains to their child about how unfair life is, they are reversing that flow of care. They are demanding emotional labor from someone who relies on them for security.
Wow. Yeah, that inherently destroys the child's natural reverence, that filial piety,
Hmm.
because the parent has basically abdicated their role as the emotional anchor.
Right. But the blast radius doesn't stop at the front door.
No, it moves right into the social and professional spheres. The text claims complaining to friends won't just cost you the friendship, it turns them into actual enemies.
Which is quite the escalation. And in the workplace, bringing this toxicity to your boss gets you demoted or fired.
And whining to your colleagues ensures that when you actually need their help, they will completely scatter.
The author even traces this destruction all the way up to the existential level.
Right, the spiritual sphere.
Yeah, if you complain to the universe, to the greatest creator, or to the ancestor of Buddha, you lose your spirituality. You are sent into darkness.
Which, again, we're looking at psychologically. What Schwiffing is describing here is a posture of fundamental victimhood against reality itself.
Exactly. If you decide the fabric of the universe is out to get you, you guarantee your own despair because you've positioned yourself as powerless against literally everything.
Okay, I have to pause here, though, and maybe play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
The author calls grumbling and complaining a crime. The text literally states it is a crime that destroys all good things. Isn't that taking it a bit far?
You mean compared to how we view it today?
Yeah. I mean, modern culture practically encourages us to vent. We are told that bottling up our frustrations is super unhealthy. If you have a brutal day at work, isn't it just a normal, healthy release valve to come home and vent to your spouse?
That tension right there between modern psychology's emphasis on letting it out and this text's absolute prohibition on complaining, that is the crux of the entire essay.
Really? How does the text address that defense, the whole it's just venting thing?
It addresses it by revealing the identity of the primary victim, and it completely upends our assumptions about who gets hurt the most by all this negativity.
Oh, here's where it gets really interesting. Because you would naturally assume the people most damaged by a complaining partner or friend would be the fragile people.
Right, the ones who are already anxious or weak.
Exactly. But the text argues the exact opposite.
It says the people most vulnerable to the weapon of complaining are actually the ambitious, the emotional, and the caring.
Right, a truly strong person is not afraid of physical difficulties. They can face desperation, they can bear heavy burdens, work 60-hour weeks, and endure incredible hardship without breaking.
Because they have this immense capacity for suffering when there is a purpose to it.
But they have one massive Achilles heel, the people they love. The text says these highly capable people are profoundly vulnerable to the grumbling of their relatives and friends.
And when we look at the psychology of compassion fatigue, this rings incredibly true. When you come home and vent to a supportive partner, you aren't just releasing steam into an empty room.
No, you're not.
You are placing a tangible emotional tax directly on the shoulders of the person trying the hardest to support you.
Wow.
The strong person derives their courage from the belief that they're building a good life for their family. When you constantly complain, you are telling them, in essence, that their effort isn't working.
That is such a tragic irony. You have a partner who is willing to take on incredible stress for you, but the text says your constant dissatisfaction will slowly crush their confidence.
It drains their courage.
Right, it destroys their patience. It even warns that their soft temper will gradually become irritable, and they'll lose their reasonability. You are taking your greatest ally and actively disarming them.
It really forces you to reevaluate the utility of venting. You might feel a temporary 10-minute relief after complaining about your day, but you have purchased that relief by drawing down the emotional bank account of the person you rely on most.
And over time, that account just goes bankrupt.
Exactly. To see how this venom actually operates in real time, the text provides the exact sound of the weapon.
Yeah, it lists out real-world phrases that constitute this destructive behavior. And frankly, reading them is a bit like looking in an uncomfortable mirror.
It really is. Let's dissect a few of those specific quotes.
Okay.
Take the downward blame directed at a child kid, "Why do you disappoint me so?" Or the backward-looking blame, "My parents didn't give me a conducive environment for my growth."
Right. And both of these phrases accomplish the exact same goal. They totally absolved the speaker of the responsibility to improve their current situation.
Yeah. And then there are the phrases that strike right at the heart of the partner.
Oh, these are brutal. Were it not for you in this family, I would live much better than I do, or were it not for you, I would not have become so wretched.
That is just the ultimate manipulation. You are deeply unhappy with who you have become, so you shift 100% of the agency onto the person sharing your life.
It traps the victim in guilt while allowing the complainer to play the martyr.
Exactly. The text also targets the professional world, by the way. It quotes a hypothetical employee saying, "I am sad because the place into which I have poured all my body and soul offer me no warmth or solace."
It frames the workplace as a surrogate parent that has failed to provide unconditional love rather than, a transactional environment where you just exchange labor for capital.
Right. But wait, let's look at another workplace quote. The text gives the example of someone saying, "The reason I was fired was not because I was incapable, but because my boss was short-sighted and failed to recognize my talent."
Okay, let's apply some real-world logic to that one.
Right.
What if the boss actually was completely incompetent?
Right.
What if you objectively, factually got fired unfairly by a terrible manager? Are you committing a crime by accurately stating what happened?
This touches on the most radical aspect of Xu Feng's philosophy. The text doesn't actually concern itself with whether your grievance is factually true.
Wait, really?
Yeah, let's say your boss was, in fact, incredibly short-sighted. You go out with your friends and you spend 2 hours tearing that boss apart. It feels justified. It feels like justice.
Sure.
But what is actually happening? The text argues you are trapping yourself in a vicious circle of passivity.
Because complaining isn't about accuracy. It's about utility.
Precisely.
Really?
By vocalizing that resentment and marinating the unfairness of it, you create what the author calls countless obstacles and thorns for yourself.
Wow.
You are actively rewiring your brain to focus on how other people control your destiny.
So when you fixate on the short-sighted boss who ruined your life, you aren't spending that energy figuring out how to adapt or improve your skills or dominate your next interview.
No, you ruin your own bright future because you cement your identity as a victim.
The collateral damage of the weapon includes the person firing it. You are literally killing your own potential.
Yep.
So, if complaining is this universally destructive and even justified venting is practically self-sabotage, what is the alternative? When you are genuinely wronged or overworked or suffering, what do you do with that energy?
Well, the text offers a solution, but it requires a massive paradigm shift. The immediate tactical advice the text offers is replacement.
A replacement.
Yeah. It states that practitioners, people actively trying to cultivate a better version of themselves, must replace complaints with affirmations and praises.
Okay.
The mechanism here is about shifting focus from deficit to surplus. When you praise someone, even in a difficult situation, you change the dynamic from what is lacking to what is valuable.
The author actually poetically promises that doing this causes the rough winds and rain to cease and allows the bright sun to shine on your road.
It's a nice image. But the core cure goes much deeper than just forcing a smile and saying nice things.
Oh, absolutely. To truly stop the internal infection of grumbling, Xu Feng insists you have to internalize a highly specific philosophical framework.
The author roots this in a concept detailed in broader texts, like the Chanyuan Corpus. But the entire philosophy basically boils down to one staggering, uncompromising sentence.
And that sentence is, "The world is faultless. All faults lie within us."
The world is faultless, all faults lie within us. I mean, it is a concept that is inherently offensive to our modern sensibilities.
It's a massive pill to swallow. I mean, the text doubles down on it. It says that when you were treated unfairly, when you were overworked, abandoned, suppressed, or desperate, the root of the problem is never society.
Right.
It is never the fact that there are bad people in the world. It is never that others misunderstand you. The root is always you.
Always.
So what does this all mean? Is this just like the ultimate form of victim blaming? Telling people who are suffering that it's their own fault?
I mean, if you view it through a superficial lens, it certainly sounds like victim blaming. But when we examine the underlying psychology of this statement, it is fundamentally a strategy of extreme militant empowerment.
How so?
Think about the alternative. If you blame society, the economy, your boss, or the universe for your suffering, you are entirely powerless.
Right.
You have handed the keys to your happiness over to forces you cannot control. You are waiting for the world to apologize and change its nature, and you might be waiting for the rest of your life.
But by declaring the world as faultless, you are essentially accepting reality exactly as it is. You are saying the world has storms, the world has unfair bosses, the world has tragedy, and it is not going to change its nature for me.
Exactly. By completely removing the outside world as a valid scapegoat, you force yourself to reclaim 100% of your own agency.
Wow.
If the fault lies within you, then the power to fix it also lies within you. You stop complaining about the rain and you start building a shelter.
You transition from a passive object that things happen to into an active subject who navigates the terrain.
Yes, it doesn't mean bad things didn't happen to you. It means your response to those bad things is the only variable that actually matters.
And if your chosen response is to pick up the invisible weapon of complaining and start copying toxicity onto your spouse and your friends, well, you're just multiplying the damage the world already did to you.
Right. It demands a level of self-reflection that is incredibly uncomfortable. It's always easier to point the finger outward and demand that the world accommodate us.
Oh, always.
To look inward and take absolute responsibility requires a kind of psychological steel that very few people are willing to forge.
So true. So take a step back and look at the whole picture we've uncovered today. We started with the silent, incubating infection of grumbling, that internal entitlement and resentment.
Right.
And we saw how it mutates into complaining, becoming an active toxic weapon that we unleash on the people closest to us. We mapped out the blast radius, realizing that the people we hurt the most are often the strong, capable partners and friends who are desperately trying to carry us.
And we also dissected the manipulation hidden inside our everyday venting. We recognized that focusing on the unfairness of others, even when it's factually accurate, only traps us in passivity.
Yeah. And finally, we confronted the radical antidote, the demanding, empowering philosophy that the world is faultless, and our salvation lies entirely in our own absolute accountability.
It is a framework that genuinely challenges how we move through our daily lives.
It really does. And as we wrap up this deep dive into Swiffing's essay, we want to leave you with a thought experiment to carry with you into the rest of your week.
Yeah. Think about the very next conversation you're going to have where someone wrongs you.
Like a barista messes up your order, or a coworker takes credit for your idea, or a driver cuts you off in traffic.
Right. If you were to genuinely adopt the belief in that exact moment that the world is faultless and all faults lie within you, how would that physically change the very next sentence that comes out of your mouth?
Such a great question.
Does accepting absolute total accountability entirely erase the concept of being a victim?
It is a heavy question to mull over. But the next time you feel that internal resentment bubbling up, the next time you feel the urge to just let that invisible weapon slip out and infect the room, just pause.
Yeah, think about the invisible damage. Think about the heavy tax you are placing on the people who love you.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we will see you next time.